Now, the 4th of July is coming up here soon, in about, what, a week? About a week. Why not? We'll call it a week and a few days. I'm really excited, actually. I like holidays. I'll probably be in for work, but I like I like holidays. And I just really love the idea of the 4th of July for some reason. I'm really stoked about it this year for some reason. I don't know. Maybe it's the election season. The patriotism is really kicking in full swing. Really glad to be here, not just in America, but in the southern United States. I really love it here. I've been here all my life, obviously. You can't tell by my voice, but I've lived here all my life. It's such a great place of the world. So many great people, and the 4th of July is a cool reminder of that, I guess. It just makes me happy because you get to do stuff that you can't do all year round. For instance, and this is Best Shot, by the way, your show here on Hot News Talk Radio. Best Shot, number to call in is 423-800-8949. That's 423-800-8949. For instance, I really like guns in the sense that I own them, I shoot them, I like them, I appreciate them. They're great tools, right? They're good for many things. And I love the mechanics of them. I don't worship guns or anything like that. I don't need them necessarily, but that doesn't really matter, does it? You know, like I don't need a computer, but I want one and I use it. I don't need a lot of things, but I want them and I use them because why not? You know, I want them. So I'm really excited about the 4th of July coming up for one primary reason, which is I'll get to fire my guns without the neighbors freaking out thinking that there's been a shooting, because that for some reason keeps happening every single time. And I've got, proper backstop. There's enough room. There's no legal problem whatsoever. There's no safety issue. There's no legal issue. Everything by the book is fine. But for some reason, I got this neighbor who always flips out and comes over. He's like, "Is everything okay? I heard shots." Like, yes, it's fine. Listen, if you hear shots, things are probably okay. They're better than okay at my house. If you're hearing gunshots, things are great. If you're not, you should be worried. But no, but there's exercising your rights, and that's awesome. And you should do it more often than maybe you do. And then there's being a nuisance. Like if my next door neighbor was firing a gun 24/7, I'd be kind of annoyed. I've got this neighbor who drives me nuts because he's got this, I don't know what it is. It's like this giant muscle car thing. I'm not good with cars. I don't know what the heck it is. It's this big car. And it's like it's like a V8, I suppose. Giant engine. It's got the big air intake on top for the carb and all those. It looks like something out of Mad Max, except maybe a little bit more polished. And he revs the dang thing every day, and I'm just like, oh, you're so fortunate that I am a libertarian, because I would be very upset. I'd be a little bit more angry than I already am if you were revving my engine and I was some freaking liberal and I was going to call the cops on you for polluting the atmosphere or whatever the heck they call the cops on you for. Ridiculous stuff. I ain't no commie. You can rev your engine all day if you want to. That doesn't mean I'll be happy about it, though. You know what I'm saying? So this is Best Shot here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, hotnewstalkradio.com. And you can also call in. Number to call in is 423-800-8949. We're talking about the stuff that's on our Twitter account right now. And there's actually quite a lot that's been posted in just the last few weeks. Check us out on Twitter, by the way, Hot News Talk Radio on Twitter. Check us out on Facebook, AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio on Facebook. One of the photos we posted on Hot News Talk Radio is a giant photo of Hitler. No, we don't like Hitler. A giant picture of Hitler that says gun control. It's not about the guns. It's about control. And it totally is. And there are so many people who are playing into the whole thing, not really getting what the issue is about. Like, you've got all these people who are scared of guns, or you've got all these people who are talking about guns and they don't know anything about them. Like Mike Gallagher, if you're listening to him just a few minutes ago, he was talking about how a lot of them probably don't even know what AR stands for in AR-15. And I'll clue you in case you don't know, because I didn't know a few years ago. I'm a younger guy. I didn't know a few years ago what AR stood for. It's actually the company that designed it. Eugene Stoner designed the AR rifles for a company called Armalite, which was the aircraft division of Fairchild, believe it or not. And Armalite owns the patents, I believe, still to the AR series of rifles. And the AR-15 is the Armalite Model 15. It's pretty simple. And believe it or not, there is an AR-10. There's an AR-18. There's an AR, I want to say 10. I already said 10, I'm sorry. There's an AR something else. It's a survival rifle. I don't think it's actually an Armalite design. But there's a lot of Armalite guns. The goal was to have a lightweight gun that would work in multiple conditions, that would be easily serviced, and that was, you know, next generation weaponry stuff. We're talking about immediately post-World War II weaponry, where we're starting to talk about composites and plastics in guns, other than Bakelite, obviously. And that's where the Armalite AR-15 came from. And then that got changed into a full auto version and became the M16, which is just, the M16 is just a military designation of that particular gun. Well, you've heard of the M1 Garand, or Garand. That's the M1. You know, it's the M1. That's not the actual name of the gun per se. It's just the M1 Garand, because that's what the Army designated it as. There's the M2 as well, and there's the M3 grease gun. The Thompson submachine gun had an M designation. There's also the M1A1, which is a completely different gun. There's all sorts of, there's the M1 carbine as well. All sorts of different military weapons and all sorts of different guns that are really nothing more than tools. They fire lead projectiles out of a barrel at a high rate of speed. Sometimes they fire a lot of lead projectiles out of a barrel at a high rate of speed. But something that really, here in the South, we don't need to talk about that too much, quite frankly. We're used to it here. It's not like up north where, or out west even, I mean, way out west, like California. It's not like out west and up north where they don't really get it in terms of guns, because they didn't grow up with them. Here, we're used to hunting. We're used to having dads who were in the military, grandpas who were in the military. My grandfather was a radio operator in the Navy. I don't think I don't believe he saw combat, obviously, but he was in the military. He was familiar with weaponry. I'm sure he trained with it in basic and that sort of thing. So they're not afraid of these guns because they know how they work, and they know that they're not going to magically kill people. We're used to that down here. Because, like I said, we got family members who are in the military a lot more than they have up north. Probably you know or are a family member of someone who's in the military. That's how most of the South is. You may not know, but it's not like that all the time up north. There are certainly veterans up north, but a majority of them actually come from the South, because the South is very patriotic towards the United States, which is maybe a little bit ironic, actually, considering the whole war thing, but that was 200 years ago. We don't need to bring that up. So it's interesting to me, though, the difference in attitude towards guns. You'll even see people who are not necessarily pro-gun per se down south, who are still recognizing that they're not immediately going to leap off of a shelf and murder someone, because that's not what they do. We don't see a whole lot of anti-gun lobbying here because we know how guns work. It's kind of, I like to compare it to computers, actually. If you remember in the 80s and the 90s and the 70s, where people thought that you could whistle into a phone and launch nuclear missiles because they just didn't understand how computers work. They didn't understand the internet. They didn't understand any sort of networking communications. People didn't understand that because they had no reason to, no experience with it. Just like I don't understand anything about mechanics, or sorry, being a mechanic. I don't understand much of a thing about cars. I can change my own oil. I can change a tire. I know how to change filters and such. And I can do basic everyday maintenance, but I'm not a mechanic. I don't know how a catalytic converter works exactly. I just know it's got platinum in it, and it's something about converting something catalytically with some sort of chemical process, because I know what a catalyst is. But I don't know anything about the exhaust system or any of that stuff. I'm not qualified to know about it. And you see a lot of people, I have no qualification to have any opinion whatsoever about the internal workings of any car. I know that I like a Honda because of its body style. I know I like the Ford Ranger because it's a small pickup truck, and I think it's a nice pickup truck. I know that I like the 1969 Pontiac GTO because it's a nice looking car. I don't know anything about the engine because I'm not a car guy. I'm not qualified to have an opinion about the engine. And I'd look like an idiot if I said something about the engine, because I'd probably be wrong. And that's how a lot of people are who are talking about guns. They don't understand how the guns themselves work. They might have a philosophical argument about the possession of them, but they don't really know anything about guns, the history of guns, gun culture. They're picturing a bunch of, you know, a lot of the, you know, the liberal depiction of the fat redneck, which exists, but not nearly as much as they think it does. It's a disgusting stereotype. The fat redneck who's got 14 AR-15s for some reason. He's got 3 handguns strapped to his belt and ammo belts around his shoulders, and he's got an NRA hat and all that stuff. And that stereotype exists, yeah, just like a lot of stereotypes exists. But that doesn't mean that it's the norm, right? Like, there's a lot of stereotypes that do exist, but it doesn't mean it's the norm. You know, it's ridiculous. It's a obvious and it's a deliberate caricature. What's the word I'm looking for? Caricature. Sorry. It's an obvious and deliberate caricature, and it's obviously playing on people's sense of insecurity, where they say, well, other people don't need to have this thing because I don't want this thing. Other people don't need to have this thing because I don't believe they have a right to own this thing. I don't understand how rights work, obviously, says the person who doesn't want you to own an AR-15. They don't. They can't. Because if they're talking about taking away something that is obviously and plainly in the Constitution, they don't know how rights work. They don't. They have no qualification to have an opinion about this thing because they don't know anything about it. And that's not saying that they necessarily are idiots or they're dumb. It's just they're uneducated. You can convert people like them. I know people like them who were converted over to the pro-gun side. And it doesn't make you a bad person or a good person. It's an opinion about something, but also it's trotting upon other people's rights, which is never a good thing to do. That's something called tyranny, which actually people have died to fight, believe it or not, which is something that's coming up here soon on the 4th of July. Actually, people died to fight the kind of tyranny that still exists today, with people saying you shouldn't own a particular firearm because the magazine has a frightening amount of bullets in it. People don't understand how guns work. Typical people, I guess, maybe. So they're deliberately misinformed by the media, especially. Because people who make movies generally don't know how guns work either. People who make the television shows typically don't know how guns work. People who make war movies tend to have accurate depictions of guns. Like Ridley Scott did a great job in Black Hawk Down. That was a great movie. And then there was We Were Soldiers. Again, that's a great movie. And what's the other one that Steven Spielberg did? Can't believe I remember now. I just watched it. Saving Private Ryan. Great depiction of weaponry. Maybe a little bit inaccurate, but the guns weren't totally ridiculous in that movie because it's a war movie. There's rules, there's basics. But for some reason, whenever it's like some lone vigilante, he never has to reload, and he's shooting dozens of people with no aim whatsoever, and it just sort of comes naturally, and there's no like shaking of the hands or anything like that. It's ridiculous. People don't understand how weapons work, and that's just something that really, I guess it just gets under my skin for some reason. It just bothers me. Because I hate it. I hate willful ignorance. I think that's what it is. I hate willful ignorance. I don't hate the people who are willfully ignorant, but I hate willful ignorance. The action of it is just disgusting to me. Number to call in is 423-800-8949. That's 423-800-8949. And it's funny, too, the people who are afraid of these baby-killing guns are fine with baby killing by doctors, called aborticide. Why are they fine with that? What sense does that make? It's a total upheaval of all forms of ethics and morals. I guess because they think ethics and morals are relative. They have no basis for any sort of moral thought. There's no foundation for it. It's just whatever they think it should be. I'll read some philosophy books and decide on that. It's ridiculous. It's typical liberal nonsense. The Obama administration lies again, says one of our tweets. There is a direct link between the Orlando shooter and radical extremist Muslim groups. Details to follow, it says. And yeah, did you see that whole debacle, by the way, with the Department of Justice that scrubbed Islamic references from transcripts from the terrorists' 911 calls? Now, we've gotten the uncensored versions already. We've gotten them. But it doesn't change the fact that they censored them in the first place. It's not about necessarily the content being now released. It's more about the fact that the content was scrubbed in the first place. Originally, you had the Department of Justice that released a transcript of the 911 call, which the alleged shooter of the Orlando gay club, Omar Mateen, said during the 911 call. It's a very short transcript. But for some odd reason, they've made a decision, or had made a decision, to censor it. And I, again, don't know why. I mean, I do know why, but the decision is ridiculous. And then they decide later on, well, I guess we'll release a unredacted version. But the intent there is still there. it doesn't matter about your political motivations at all. What matters is the truth, because if you believe in something which you know is true and which you know is right, then the truth will back you up. It's like the Bible says, the truth will set you free, and that's always true. That's a true statement. The truth will set you free. You should never be afraid of facts. You should never be afraid of the truth. The truth is something that is, what's the word I'm looking for? It's unopinionated. The truth is something that exists no matter what your opinion is. The sky is blue is a true statement, except for right now where it's overcast. Okay, grass is green. That's a true statement. Trees grow. That's a true statement. You know, the truth is unbiased. That's really what I'm trying to get at. So why in the world would you then censor these documents? It's to pass an agenda, and that's not the job of the judicial branch. We're talking about the Department of Justice. Justice is blind. Justice is supposed to care ultimately about the truth, and yet for some odd reason, the Department of Justice scrubbed Islamic references from the transcripts of Omar Mateen's 911 call. That doesn't make any sense. Now, any reasonable person will know that not all Muslims are just ready and raring to start some mass act of terrorism. People know that. You know, most people know that. That's like if the shooter ended up being a white person, most people are going to know that the person is not representative of all. The person is not representative of all white people. You know, it doesn't work that way. So what's the big idea here of scrubbing these references? It's ridiculous, and really it's shameful. It's a shameful display of the so-called Department of Justice, because what justice is there if there's no truth? Justice is entirely dependent on a factual depiction of what happened. If we don't have that, then you may as well not have a Department of Justice, because it's not justice at that point. It's just it's untruth, and it's ridiculous. And really, I think the Department of Justice needs to be scrubbed of a few people, maybe. I don't mean violently. I mean they should be fired. Fire these people. Get rid of them if they're willing to do this. Again, ridiculous. It's shameful and shouldn't happen in America. What happened to us that suddenly we don't care about truth anymore? It's shameful. It's something that should never, ever happen in the United States, and yet it does. And it's not just the U.S. It's all over the place. There's this new agenda going around that somehow we've got to scrub all references. We've got to scrub all indications that there might be people of a certain religious leaning who also commit acts of terror, along with other people groups who also commit acts of terror. Again, ridiculous. Number to call in is 423-800-8949. That's 423-800-8949 is the number to call here at Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, and hotnewstalkradio.com as well. Hey, I hope you had a good Father's Day. I hope you got your dad some tools or something. If your dad is departed, I'm sorry for your loss. We all value our parents very much, I'm sure. My dad, by the way, got a lovely card. And he got to spend time with us. No, I was actually going to buy him a new drill, because he always seems to break his for some odd reason, and I just didn't get a chance to actually get my hands on one, so I got it for him a little bit later. Unfortunately, couldn't get it for him on Father's Day, but you know what? Father's Day was also on Sunday, so we were in church most of the day anyway, so it would have been a little bit weird to whip out a drill and say, hey, happy Father's Day, Dad, you know? And then you could always make the argument that Father's Day is something that's made up by the Hallmark company or what have you. Yeah, it's probably true too. Hey, did you see the news about Brexit? I hope you did. Brexit is short for Britain exit. Britain is no longer a part of the European Union, meaning European Union has to change its flag, which is always funny. And Donald Trump was actually in Scotland discussing the Brexit move, saying that it was a great thing. That's what he said at a press conference. That's the quote that's constantly being quoted. UK voters don't necessarily want to see people pouring into their country, he said. That's a short factoid, he says. UK decision will lead to other European countries wanting to take back their borders, and that is probably true. We are seeing as well in Europe the Netherlands wanting to break free. And this is an example of maybe macro local economy. You have to start big sometimes, and we are seeing that in the UK. Why would you want to be part of a huge conglomerate when you can actually act on your own, in your own best interests, instead of the best interests of millions of people? Now, I'm not a nationalist by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think that maybe having a little bit of a national identity is sometimes a good thing. It helps to ground you, maybe. Like, for instance, I am a Georgian. I like Georgia. Georgia's a great state. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Tennessee as well. Tennessee's a great state, very scenic, Chattanooga is a scenic city. I have no ill will towards Tennessee whatsoever, except for in college football, in which case the gloves come off and I can't stand you anymore. But things are going to be bad this season too. But Tennessee is a beautiful state. If you're in Tennessee, you're probably proud of being in Tennessee. And if you're in the UK, there's not a whole lot of national identity there. There's not a whole lot of, I'm very proud to be in the UK when they were in the European Union, like Germany. Germans can't say, oh, I'm proud to be in Germany because they're in the European Union. There's a whole bunch of people saying, oh, hey, I'm also in Germany, and I'm from the Netherlands, I'm from Poland, I'm from all these other places. They're not even citizens of Germany, and it doesn't make any sense. Again, I'm not nationalistic by any stretch of the imagination, but that seems a little bit weird. Plus, the European Union is basically kind of communist and is actually run by a lot of people who were former communists. So maybe there's a little bit to be said about that, too. This is Best Shot here on Hot News Talk Radio, your show, AM 1240.
1240 AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your chance to win $124 in cash and $124 in food every week with the Hot News Talk Radio 1, 2, 3 NASCAR contest. Hot News Talk 1240. All you have to do is guess who's going to be first, second, and third place in the upcoming NASCAR Sprint Cup race. If you guess it, we'll hear your name live Monday morning, 11:30. Then call AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio to win. Enter your guess right now at Rick Davis Golden Diamonds, 5301 Greater Road, Chattanooga. Green's Restaurant and Sonic Daisy across from City Hall. These are off-road technology Sonic Daisy for your four-wheel drive and truck needs. Stuff with upholstery with premium rubber foam. Cell Surgeon with broken screen dock. And Shooter Supply, 4824 Hickson Pike and Hickson. Hot News Talk 1240. Enter your guesses now and listen to the race live. To win $124 in cash and $124 in food from Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station. Hot News Talk 1240.
Hey, listen up, y'all. Ben Phillips Home Rate Mortgage, 805-9100. I'm in the business of saving people money. And if you want to save money, pick that cell phone up right now. 805-9100. I received a call that I won't forget. A family of 5. The husband's a TVA engineer. Financial stress was rising from medical bills and children in college. We lowered their rate, paid off their bills, and saved them $800 per month. Now they're living stress-free. And the best part is this. They're skipping 2 payments and paying off their home 7 years faster. It's easy, and you can do it too. It just takes 10 minutes, 1 phone call to 805-9100. There's no cost and no obligation. So why wouldn't you call 805-9100? Or if you're at your desk like me, get a quick quote at homeratemortgage.com. That's 805-9100 or homeratemortgage.com.
Finding just the right place to live can be a daunting task. Stop your search. In Chattanooga, the place to live is Cross Creek Villas for under $1,000 and available for immediate move-in. You can enjoy this 2-bedroom split layout, over 1,000 square feet, 9-foot ceilings, an extra large patio balcony. And don't forget to ask about their preferred employer program. Cross Creek Villas is a gated community offering a 24-hour fitness facility, a beautiful pool and hot tub, and Cross Creek Villas is pet-friendly. Stroll the pet park with your best friend and enjoy the free use of their business center and clubhouse. Plus, if you mentioned you heard this on the radio, your application fee is free. Cross Creek Villas, close to downtown on Highway 58. Go to crosscreekchattanooga.com. That's crosscreekchattanooga.com or call 894-0446. That's 894-0446. Redefine the way you live at Cross Creek Villas. Go to crosscreekchattanooga.com or call 894-0446. Cross Creek Villas.
Here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's got Miller. He's going for second. Earnhardt going for the lead.
The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series is on the Motor Racing Network. Hot News Talk 1240. Hear it live on the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR. Check it out live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station. Hot News Talk 1240. Hot 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update. The brakes went out in a 1996 Chevy Silverado. The car pummeled into a house on Cove Ridge Drive, causing massive damage. The driver says he was driving on the road making a left turn. When his brakes went out, he couldn't stop. He crashed into the house. The crash is now under investigation and no charges have been filed. A woman let her dog roam for a short walk when a man stepped out of his house and fired at her. Chattanooga cops say that Terrell Shropshire, who's 35, is the man who fired the shot. Officers found a spent 9mm brass casing outside his house. Shropshire is a convicted felon with an extensive criminal record. 3 years ago, he was convicted of aggravated burglary and given a 3-year sentence. A man was caught selling large amounts of meth from a Cleveland, Tennessee motel. He's been sentenced on Thursday to serve 100 months in federal prison. TBI lab results confirmed substances that were seized from the safe inside their motel room tested positive for crystal meth. If it's going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Hot 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Like us on Facebook. You give up 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world. News Talk 1240.
If you're paying any attention to the markets today, you'll see that things are going kind of crazy, but we're probably going to be okay because, well, things like that usually don't affect us too badly here in Chattanooga and Tennessee, especially. It's just, you know, market stuff is always interesting. It's always fun to talk about, but does it have any kind of like bearing on us right now here? Not really, unless we're talking about gas prices, in which case, yeah, we get affected by that, but those are staying pretty much okay. Those in the UK, though, are not doing so well. The United Kingdom has exited the European Union. It's called Brexit popularly. We've been posting about that on Twitter just a little bit on our Hot News Talk Radio Twitter site. By the way, don't forget to like us on Facebook, Hot News Talk Radio on Facebook, Hot News Talk Radio AM 1240 on Facebook. You'll see the logo that looks a little bit like an American flag. You'll see that, and that's us. Yeah, that's us. Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240 on Facebook. We've got a lot of great videos on there, too, of live streams of shows that we've done here at Hot News Talk Radio. One that's pretty popular right now is one of an artist at Bear Paw. They do jewelry over there. Very fine stuff, locally made. All their gold is sourced from the U.S. It's all, well, not sourced from the U.S., but a lot of the materials are sourced from the U.S., and the manufacturer is local to the United States. It's Bear Paw Jewelry. Cool stuff. I'll give them a bit of a free plug there. Cool stuff. Definitely check out the video that's on Facebook. That's Hot News Talk Radio on Facebook. That's AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio on Facebook. This is Best Shot, your show here on Hot News Talk Radio. Number to call in is 423-800-8949. That's 423-800-8949 is the number to call in here at Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, and hotnewstalkradio.com as well. Looking at our Twitter account here on Hot News Talk Radio, and did you see the fireworks show at the end of Riverbend? I actually missed it, believe it or not. I was going to be at Riverbend on the last day, but I got held up by other matters, we'll call it. And I kind of wish, it was really annoying. I wish I'd have been there, but oh well. I was thinking about the Orlando massacre, and that's what it was. 49, 50 if you include the shooter. 49 people dead, shot to death by, the FBI believes, shot to death by Omar Mateen, who is himself dead, apparently shot to death by the police, who stormed the building after, I think it was 3 to 4 hours, maybe 5 hours of a sort of a siege and a hostage situation that occurred there in Orlando, Florida, which a lot of us have been to Orlando, Florida. If you've been there, you know it's not exactly what you think of as a high crime area, or better yet, a target for terrorism. You don't really think of Orlando, Florida as being a target for terrorism because Orlando isn't really a financial center of anything. It's a tourist destination. It's not really a tourist trap, but it's a tourist destination. You've got SeaWorld, Disney, Universal Studios, all that stuff. You don't really think of those as targets for terror. Just like you don't really think of Chattanooga as a target for terror. And there are a lot of similarities. There are a lot of parallels between what we have here and what we have in and what we had in Orlando. Think of the attack that happened here in Chattanooga. We're not really getting any detail at all about that. And you could argue that the FBI kind of dropped the ball on the investigation in Chattanooga. And you could say basically the same thing about Orlando. Now, granted, being a suspect for something doesn't mean you're guilty of anything. And this is the legal problem we run into here. Because there's such a thing as due process, obviously. You can't just deny someone their rights because you suspect them of something. It doesn't really work that way. So if you suspected him, why not press charges? Because you can do that, believe it or not. If you have enough evidence, you can press charges against somebody for, say, conspiracy to commit an act of terror. Maybe that's a crime. Conspiracy to commit murder certainly is a crime. So there's that crime there. If the FBI was operating a sting operation on Omar Mateen, they know he buys the guns, they can guess his intent, then take him to court before the shooting happens. Why would the FBI or whatever organization was involved in the investigation of Omar Mateen, we assume it's the FBI, why would the FBI not do anything? And again, I understand that there's a whole suspect issue, that he is only a suspect until he actually commits a crime. But if you can prove intent, I mean, come on. You see stuff like To Catch a Predator, where the guy hasn't actually necessarily committed an act of, say, child molestation, which they would were there a real child there, like the Chris Hansen show. Like, you understand that. But still, there's the intent that's present, and they came there with full knowledge in their head that an underage person was there. So then if you have someone who buys weapons and you can prove intent to commit a murder with that weapon, then surely there's some charge that can be pressed in the world of charges for crossing the street the wrong way and mass surveillance. You'd think that there'd be something that could be done about it. Now, this raises another question. If we have this massive surveillance apparatus like the NSA claims and like Edward Snowden has released, why isn't it really seeming to work? Because the Boston bombing happened, Orlando happened, Chattanooga happened, San Bernardino happened, all the attacks that have happened in Europe have happened, and it doesn't seem like anything was done about it really beforehand. So what's the point of the massive surveillance apparatus if you're not actually going to use it? Now, I'm a massive advocate of Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights. You know that. But again, if you have this infrastructure and you claim that you can use it for such good, why aren't they? There's no evidence that I've seen so far that this apparatus has been used to stop any acts of terror that have been major, like the Orlando shooting, or like what happened in Chattanooga, or the San Bernardino shootings, or the Boston Marathon bombing, or what happened in France, or what happened in Germany just a little while ago, just 2 days ago, 1 day ago, actually. So what's the deal here? Obviously, it's not working. So what do you do to fix it? Can it be fixed? Is it even legal to fix it? That's the other thing. Because it seems like the whole thing is a sham. It seems like it's a big scam to make you think you're safe. Well, you know, we need the big NSA infrastructure, obviously, because otherwise terrorists could attack you. Never mind the fact that terrorists have attacked you. If it weren't for us, terrorists would attack you. But I mean, they have. But if you didn't have us, then they would attack you more, I guess. What? Okay. What sense does that make? We're not seeing any evidence whatsoever that the NSA has actually stopped any attacks. It's kind of like the TSA, right? Like you hear about the TSA and what good they supposedly do, but all I've heard from real people is complaints. That's all I've heard from real people who have real experience with the TSA. Complaints, allegations of theft, proof of theft. There was an op-ed that was done. Not an op-ed, pardon me. There was an investigation that was done by a national news source where they planted an iPad and it got stolen. They tracked it down. It was at a TSA agent's house. So obviously the TSA is not doing a whole lot of good here. So what's the deal? Yet again, a giant apparatus that gets millions of dollars of your money that doesn't seem to actually be doing much of anything at all. It's yet again another money hole. It's a money pit. We're throwing money into this thing that isn't actually doing anything at all. And you know, people on the left will say, well, we need to invest that into infrastructure. We could invest that money into social services. Oh, we could invest that money into hospitals. We can invest that money into education. We can invest that money into free college for people who don't actually need to go to college. Wouldn't that be great? Well, how about we just don't collect that money instead? Wow, radical concept. How about you stop stealing people's money and putting it in programs that oppress them? Wow. And this isn't even a issue of, you know, when we talk about oppression, people think of racial oppression a lot, and that does exist. But think about this too. It's not just along racial lines. It's everybody. Your money's being taken no matter who you are. You ever bought anything in a store? Your money's being taken. You ever bought anything, you ever reported your income? Your money's being taken there. You ever bought anything online? Your money's being taken. All these different areas where you're being taxed out the wazoo, and we sort of don't even think about it. You know, people don't even care about it. We're just sort of used to it. We're used to rolling over and saying, all right, take my money. We volunteer to have people take our money, for heaven's sake. You write down in a document, yeah, this is how much money I made, this is how much money you need to take from me. Come on. So obviously, people are used to it at this point. But what fruits are we getting out of it? all these different programs that don't really seem to be doing much of anything, all these different giant apparatuses that don't really seem to be doing anything that actually helps us. But here's another thing. By the way, this is Best Shot here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, hotnewstalkradio.com. This is Best Shot, AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, hotnewstalkradio.com. Like us on Facebook, Hot News Talk Radio on Facebook. And I want to let you know, by the way, that if you've got your big old diesel truck, right, you got your big diesel off-road vehicle, or maybe you got a smaller diesel vehicle, that's fine too. Check out Diesel Off-Road Technologies. I know a lot of people here in Chattanooga are big into diesel off-roading. They're into their off-roading, and that's great. Awesome, fun activity, really fun hobby to have. Expensive too, but Diesel Off-Road Technologies is going to help you out. They're in Soddy Daisy. They'll work on your truck, your off-road vehicle. They do repairs and upgrades too. So maybe you've been thinking about that upgrade to your truck, but you don't really want to do it yourself. Check out Diesel Off-Road Technologies. They'll be sure to help you out. Tell them the Hot News Talk Radio sent you. That's Diesel Off-Road Technologies in Soddy Daisy. I want to take this home though, because we can talk about, the national stuff. You can talk about, the national program stealing your money. But here's why. Here's another big reason why it doesn't really work. It's not local. No, really, think about it. It's not local. It doesn't cater to specific demographics. Think about marketing. Marketing is almost always targeted. Yeah, they're national ads, but think about the ads that Coca-Cola just did with Ubiquitous thing. I thought it was kind of dumb, yeah, but Coke knows what they're doing. Now think about that. Huge marketing campaign only in Chattanooga, because they have roots here. The bottling plant is right there, here in Atlanta too. Here and Atlanta, not here in Atlanta, but here and Atlanta as well, in Chattanooga and Atlanta, huge ties to Coca-Cola. Think about Mountain Dew. Again, I'm not plugging these brands, I'm giving examples. Think about Mountain Dew. You got the whole thing. Mountain Dew, moonshine, the connection going on there. It's all very obviously targeted directly at us here in Chattanooga. Now, this is with us buying things, right? We understand the application here. Have some pride in where you're from, and Coke also has pride in where it's from. So we can relate to that, so we're willing to buy that product, right? Make sense? Okay, I know you're smart. This all makes sense to you. Think about this, though. National blanket advertising is not nearly as effective as targeted specific advertising. That's why radio ads work, because we can target specific people. You want something for your diesel car. You've got a diesel truck, and you want somewhere local that can help you. You're more likely to go to Diesel Off-Road Technologies than you would be to go to something like National Diesel Brand X, right? Like, I'm more likely to go to a local place to get an oil change if I didn't do my own than I would be to go to one of the big brands like Jiffy, whatever, because I know that some of the guys there aren't necessarily as qualified as they may claim, and I'm not saying anything bad about Jiffy. I'm just saying that I've heard some horror stories about certain places, and maybe I wouldn't go to them. But a local place, I know I can probably talk to the owner and complain if something really bad happens, and it's not likely to. That's why we like local stores. That's why we like local applications. That's why we like local in general, especially here, because we're proud of where we're from, or we're proud of where we live. You might not even be from here, but we're proud of where we live. We're proud to be from Chattanooga. We're proud to live in Chattanooga. We're proud to live in Tennessee or Georgia or Alabama, wherever you are. We're proud of it, and that's okay. That's great. And here's the thing. This is why national blanket advertising, why national programs tend to not work. They're not targeted. Think about it. It's not targeted. We talk about the old surveillance, but there's not really any local application to that. Unless you live in New York City, there's not really any local application to the whole argument about, well, national security. There's not really local application to the whole argument. Well, you need the TSA, because we're not picturing that because we don't see it. It's not here. We had a terrorist attack in Chattanooga, and we're not seeing anything being done really about it. The FBI investigation is not giving us many answers at all. We don't really know why it happened. We don't really know if there was some external influence going on. There's a lot that we just don't know. And there seems to be a lot that they are withholding. Is there some political motivation behind that? Because again, we're talking about investigators who are not from here, who don't know what it's like here. And that doesn't seem to really meld or mesh with a good investigation, or with a proper understanding of what it's like to be here, what it's like to be in a situation here, what it's like to have gone through what happened here. And we're not seeing any sort of local anything coming out of national government. We're not seeing any sort of local help or local anything coming out of national government. And I'm not even saying the national government should help us. I'm saying we're not really seeing anything targeted at us at all. It seems more likely that people in the national side would just make fun of the South because that's the cool, hip thing to do, is to make fun of the South. Oh, those dumb Southerners, right? Ridiculous. Because we know we're good people, we're smart people, we like each other, we like where we live, we like it here, and we're educated, smart people who are very savvy about our local market, right? Even if you're not someone who went to college for marketing, heaven knows I didn't even go to college. I didn't need to, because we're here. We know what it's like here. We are savvy people. You see people who have not gone to college one day who are more savvy about the local market, local people, local politics than anyone who's ever gotten a degree in business or politics or political science or anything. We know that here, but on the national side, they don't really get that. A lot of people, I should say, I don't want to generalize, but a lot of people just don't get that. And that's, I think, one of the big problems. That's one of the big disconnects that we have between local economy, local people, and the national side that just can't relate to us. We can't relate to it because we're not from there. And you talk about the guys in D.C. all the time. We hear about, oh, on Capitol Hill, on Capitol Hill. Most of us haven't even been to Capitol Hill. I haven't. Most of us have not been to Washington, D.C. Most of us haven't, a lot of us haven't been out of the South. A lot of us haven't been. A lot of us haven't traveled internationally. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That's okay. You know, most of us haven't had the opportunity. I've been to Canada once for a wedding. I loved it. But I was to Canada once. I've not been more north than Saudi Daisy in a while. And that's okay, because I like it down here. So you understand there's that big disconnect between national and local. The only solution, the only thing that could really help us deep down is, one, lack of national intervention. Stop messing with us. I'm not saying that in a violent way, obviously. Stop messing with us. Stop trying to govern us. Stop trying to throw money at us and hope things work. Stop trying to take money from us. And the other thing is, be proactive locally, right? Like, local elections do matter. National ones, I don't know. Local elections do matter because we can talk to our local representatives. Example, we've had local people here at our radio station who go to Nashville to legislate. I could talk to them and give them my concerns. Now, I'm a radio show host, so I might be able to do that to a national guy too, maybe. But I grew up a regular guy. Most of us did. I'm a regular guy deep down. I'm just some guy. I'm not just some guy, but I'm a regular guy deep down. I'm not anything special in my personality or anything like that. A regular guy. I like being a regular guy because it's nice, it's convenient, it's fun. You get to do lots of fun things. But I can communicate as a regular person with someone who goes to Nashville to legislate, or with someone who's a city councilman here. For instance, Sabrina Smedley does a wonderful show here every Tuesday at 11, the Sabrina and Ben Home Show. She's on the city council, and I can talk to her. I have talked to her about different things in the city. You can do that. You can call in to the show. It's right here, 423-800-8949. When she's here, that's the number to call in to her show as well. Every Tuesday at 11, you get her take on a lot of stuff, both politically, in the real estate realm, in the mortgage realm when Ben's on the air, which he usually is. You get all sorts of fun stuff locally that really does affect you. The local real estate market does affect us, but Chinese buying up houses in California might not. Definitely not short term. So it's interesting, and that's why I love being on a local radio station with local people talking about local issues. That's why that's so important. I want to sort of break that idea that we have to focus on national all the time or international all the time. National politics are fun, don't get me wrong. They're great. International politics and policy is fun, don't get me wrong. It's great. But local is where it really does matter all the time. And David Tulis has really opened my eyes to that, by the way. Check out his website, Nooganomics.com. He posts on our Facebook page. Hopefully we're going to get it back on the air here soon. Nooganomics.com is his website. David Tulis is the name, and Local Economy is the game. Definitely check out his website. Check us out on Facebook as well. You'll see some of his postings. He's been doing some really interesting talks about fluoride in the water supply here in Chattanooga. Now, is him talking about fluoride and maybe getting fluoride out of the water here in Chattanooga going to affect anything in Washington, D.C.? Maybe not. They might even not know it happens. But that's okay because it affects us here. And that doesn't mean that nowhere else matters. If you live and you're listening maybe in China, China matters to you. Your location in China matters to you. You can affect things locally in China. If you live in Kentucky, in, say, Paducah, Kentucky, things in Paducah, Kentucky matter to you. And you can affect things in Paducah, Kentucky. I'm not saying by any means that any other place doesn't matter. But to us, where we are right now, we matter here. This matters to us. Where we live matters to us. It affects us. It affects our children. You're going to have kids here in Chattanooga. You might already have kids here in Chattanooga. Ringgold, same way. I live in Ringgold, actually. Ringgold matters to me. Catoosa County matters to me. The people who are running for election matter to me. Who's sheriff matters to me because he's the most important person in the county. That matters to me. And I'm sure it matters to you as well. And I want to break that idea that we have to all the time be worrying about the national elections. You're going to stress yourself to death if you do that. Local matters. You can talk to local people. You can reason with local people. It's not like I can call up Donald Trump and say, listen, man, I've got some concerns about gun control. I can't do that. I'm not going to import any ideas into his head. I'm not going to import any ideas into any congressman's head. People talk about, oh, call your senator, call your congressman. Does that actually do much of anything, though? It does here. You can talk to your city councilman. You can talk to your local senators and local congressmen. You can know your district and talk to them, and they'll actually listen to you, believe it or not. Good stuff. I love it. Chattanooga is a great place. I'm constantly wowed and floored by all the great things we have here, the great culture we have here, the wonderful community we have here. Again, because we're so close to July 16th, I keep thinking about it. I don't mean to beat a dead horse, so to speak. I don't mean to invoke a tragedy to make a point, but I just keep being reminded of it, especially because it's coming up on the 1-year anniversary. And I was just thinking about how the community came together so cohesively, especially at the time. You may not know, I was actually reporting on it as it was happening. That's not to put a feather in my hat. It's just the fact of the matter. I was reporting on the issue as it was happening live, and I'll tell you, I was nervous. Just like you, I'm nervous over here talking about it as it was happening because that's a nerve-wracking thing. I know people who live and work down there in that area where it happened. So that was frightening to you as much as it was me. Hearing about that, terrifying stuff. And the response to it was so full of not hate, right? The response to it was so full of understanding. It was full of love. We were immediately concerned for the families involved. We didn't immediately jump on, well, we got to start bombing people. Most people didn't think that. And that really, again, showed to me what a great place it is to live here. It's such an amazing place. You can communicate with people so well here. I can't even put into words how much I like it here. It's just such a great place. And I know I'm gushing about it. And believe it or not, I may not sound like it, but I actually am from here. I was born in Erlanger Medical Center. Born in Erlanger Medical Center and lived in the area all my life. And I know I don't sound like it, not sure why. Mom's not from here, that's why. Mom's from Michigan. She talks a lot. And my dad's from Louisiana. He doesn't talk too much, so I got more of her than I did of him vocally. So that's why I sound the way I do. But you know what? I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. If I had $1 million, the opportunity to move anywhere I want to, I wouldn't. I really wouldn't. I would stay here. And I know most of us would too. You win the lottery tomorrow, you get the mega bucks, whatever. Most of us aren't going to move from here. I don't know. I went on kind of a rant there about Chattanooga. You know what? That's all right. We can do it again next week, too. Number to call in is 423-800-8949. That's 423-800-8949 is the number to call in here at Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, hotnewstalkradio.com as well. Check us out on Twitter. Check us out on Facebook, Hot News Talk Radio on Facebook. That's Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240 on Facebook. Check us out on Twitter as well, Hot News Talk Radio on Twitter. Colin Cowherd coming up next, one of the best sports reporters and sports journalists, sports broadcasters ever. But I actually kind of like Keon Rose a little bit better. He's usually on at 6. He's actually on vacation right now, but you can watch live streams and YouTube videos of him on our YouTube account, Hot News Talk Radio on YouTube. Colin Cowherd up next.
You give up 12 minutes and 40 seconds. We'll give you Chattanooga and the world. Talk 1240. Here's the Cleveland with David Tulis. He can work home. Yeah. It'll put a smile on your summer face. Rick buys it all. Rick gives you Fillmore, and he wants to pay you the most today.